Welcome back to your Pig Trail show for our Hogs Hoops report featuring Kevin McPherson. Thank you so much as always for joining us. Ailey Weiss here as well. We've got a lot to talk about. We haven't had the chance to chat in a couple of weeks. 3 games in the win column for the Razorbacks. Most recently, Winthrop and Jackson State. What are you seeing mainly after those 2 games? 2 very different final scores, by the way.
Yeah, Arkansas had to fight for its life, and it needed a 6-0 run in the last minute plus to, flip a 5-point deficit into a 1-point win. That's not when you're setting up these bye games. That's not the kind of finish that you're hoping you have to figure out a way not to have a loss that's really a killer on your postseason resume. Even this early in the year, a loss like that at home can be. But you're also, if you're John Calipari, trying to give, even with some of these mid-major bye games, teams that are going to challenge your team to some degree, and it's not just a cakewalk like we saw against Jackson State on Friday night. There's not a lot of benefit to those either, other than it's another game on the resume.
Right.
You don't get a whole lot in terms of helping the resume, other than if you lost the game, it would be brutal. But Winthrop is one of those where Arkansas again. At some point you might look back on a game like that at the end of your season saying, you know what, that turned out to be a must win. That might have been the difference between making the NCAA tournament not. And that's not a conversation any Hog fan wants to even entertain. Yeah, we're still in November, but this was a team projected top 15 of the country coming into it, and a team that might challenge for the SEC regular season title. And now you're talking, can Arkansas be a top 2, 3, or 4 seed? So there wasn't a whole lot in terms of these 2 wins in the past week, moving Arkansas closer to that conversation that we came in with preseason. Right now, they're still trying to figure out an identity, trying to figure out a way to have better post presence at both ends and more physicality, more cohesiveness at both ends. Arkansas, despite going 2-0, now the 21st ranked team in the country. We'll see what the polls shake out tomorrow. But you're right, there was 2 different games. Winthrop, you snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, and then against Jackson State, you had your way. Everything came easy. Everything went right. 7 players in double-figure scoring, 115 points, the most under Calipari at Arkansas now in year 2. But Winthrop could be one of those things where you try to use that as a springboard, and you're going to have to figure out really quick what that's, how to navigate a really brutal upcoming non-conference schedule, because that 4-game homestand, you went 4-0, but you had a couple of close calls in there, and the competition only gets better.
Right. Well, you talked a little bit about it, but the big man, that issue, they haven't really found anybody who's consistently there for them in the paint down low. We were thinking maybe Trevon Brazile. Malik Ewan last game had a fantastic game. Who are you seeing to hopefully step into that role, especially against the game on Thanksgiving against Duke?
Well, Brazile's having his best season to date because he's been consistent, but he's not a low post kind of player. He's playing better through physicality than he ever has.
Right.
He's creating shots off the bounce, but he's not really a guy that's going to anchor himself down low defensively. You can't really play him back to the basket on offense and run stuff through him. So there are limits in terms of his frontline presence with the absence of some of those things that he doesn't do that are not really in his wheelhouse. And so, Nick Pringle, for the most part, has been pretty dependable. I never thought you'd get a ton of scoring production out of him, but he did have the big finish and had his best game so far when it was needed to overcome that deficit late and defeat Winthrop. So when I look at Pringle, I would say, he's been pretty consistent rebounding. He does tend to get in foul trouble at times, but he's blocking some shots. I think the big question mark's been Malik Ewan. He has not been what Arkansas thought he would be. We knew that he was kind of a soft skill finesse guy offensively, but he had big rebounding numbers coming here, and he just hasn't done it. And then you look at him, a lot of flat-footed ball watching instead of being engaged in the play, and that's how you don't get rebounds. And there's been no physicality, it seems like, from him whatsoever at either end. And so I think, if we're singling anybody out, it's Malik Ewan. Now, in this last game against Jackson State, anybody could have been the leading scorer. Arkansas made it a point. Calipari made it a point to start playing through. He started Ewan, and he played through him from the early parts to the end. Now, because it was such a blowout, 115-61, he only played 14 minutes, but he led the team in scoring with 21 points. only 3 rebounds. Again, I look at that. The 21 points, he hit his first career 3. We saw it in the summer practice reports that he was starting to shoot threes. He'd only attempted one in his career prior to coming to Arkansas, and he hits his first 3. But again, this opponent didn't put up much resistance anywhere. So I don't know how much you can bank some of that success. Again, 21 points, 8 of 9 from the field.
Right.
The dude's a really good free throw shooter, Malik Ewing, but he doesn't draw enough fouls because he's not playing a physical brand of basketball.
Right.
You need him to generate those free throw attempts in addition to doing work down low on both ends. And so front line, Ailey, I think he's the kind of the missing link right now. And we don't know what happens next in terms of him figuring things out. And we see a different player in a positive, improved way moving forward, or if this is just kind of what you got. And if that's the case, Arkansas's got issues in the interior, despite, again, Trevor Brazile being the best version of himself. And Nick Pringle, pretty dependable. It's just, again, there are limits to what kind of force he can be offensively. And then I think defensively, he's even been a little bit up and down, as has everybody. It's an Arkansas team, when you look at advanced metrics, in the 40s in both offense and defensive ratings. And this is a team, if you're talking top 10 to 15 team with aspirations of being a Final Four team later in the year, if that trend continues, and we're still very early, but if that trend were to continue, this is not a final weekend kind of a team, and would be lucky to advance to the second weekend based on what we've seen so far. So it's not just the interior, but I think that's a big, big part of it right now.
I think a key word that you just said was so far, right? Coach Cal has been talking about how, hey, we're playing really good basketball right now, but there's still a lot that we need to work on. And a lot of that is the physicality aspect, which we've kind of touched on so far. They played a much more physical game against Jackson State. They weren't just matching the physicality, but they were exceeding it. That's something that they're for sure going to need to do against Duke.
Yeah, that's a building block, because sometimes you can play down to your competition. Jackson State's getting beat up by everybody. That's a team that hasn't won a game. And so Arkansas did not play down to the competition in that one. And that's at least a starting point. This time last year, Arkansas destroyed Maryland Eastern Shore, a similar kind of game leading into Feast Week. And then you go and play Illinois on a neutral court in the Midwest, Kansas City, not Chicago, like and play Duke. This Duke team, it seems to me, to be even better than last year's Illinois team that really kind of controlled that game against Arkansas on Thanksgiving Day. Arkansas needs a different scenario, needs a better start to the game, needs to play with more physicality. And I think this team is still trying to figure out how to keep everybody involved on the offensive end. Your freshmen, the 2 true freshmen, are the best shot creators, the best scorers. And sometimes it just feels like, not that they're intentionally playing selfishly, but so much runs through them, and they will distribute. But I think other guys, other players, some of your retention, some of the other players are still trying to figure out exactly how to mesh in with that. And they're having off nights. And when you're not, sometimes when you don't see the ball go through the basket, other parts of your game lag and sag. And, you know, Calipari says it all the time. Just because you're not scoring, you should be doing other things, rebounding, these kinds of things. And so we've seen Carter Knox now with a couple of double-doubles, just had another one. But then he's been off in a lot of games. You know, Brazile, as good as he's been kind of consistently, he had that off night against the only team Arkansas's played really with a high major pulse. That's Michigan State on the road. Now you're away from home again. Does Trevor Brazile have a game like that? Or does he have a game like he had against Duke 2 years ago in Bud Walton Arena in the first ever ACC-SEC Challenge when Brazile had a double-double? So there's a lot of question marks going into this game. Arkansas needs, out of their top 8 rotation, they need 5 or 6 guys on point, and the other remainder, you know, even if they're not at their best, maybe it's offensively, they're giving you other things on defense, hustle plays. Arkansas needs a more collective effort than I've seen to this point. You can look at, again, the Jackson State result and say, well, everybody played well. Yeah, and everybody that Jackson State's played, their win list has played well. So that's kind of one of those, what did we really learn from that?
Yep. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but on the other side, we are going to talk about Duke. We're going to talk about some of those freshman stars that we've already briefly mentioned, because there's a lot going on with this team. Stick with us. Welcome back to the Hogs Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson, Ailey Weiss here. Lots to talk about. 2 specific freshmen, Darius Acuff Jr. and Malik Thomas. I mean, Kevin, they've been absolute studs so far this season.
Especially offensively. Everything really has run through them. When you look at shot creation for themselves and for others, they're good facilitators. They're score first kind of guys, but they'll move the ball and they'll get off of it. It's just sometimes it's not that they take a ton of bad shots. It's just sometimes it's the timing of things.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really complain about either one of them offensively. Defensively is a little bit of a different story, except that Malik Thomas has been a very good playmaker defensively at times. He's one of those energy guys on the defensive end that gets deflections, will get a steal and then push the other way. But if you look at everything, Arkansas, whatever this team becomes, it's going to be in great part to the success of these two because again, it's a pretty clear separation in terms of shot creation. I know I keep saying that, but it's important. I mean, you want to be sound defensively. Arkansas is not there yet. Offensively, it's been kind of up and down. Some of the efficiency, especially in this 4-game winning streak against mid-major teams, looks pretty good for some of these guys. Duke's going to be a real test. Michigan State obviously was the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've got your second game away from home, but not a true road game against Duke. But I think you're right. I mean, Acuff and Malik Thomas have taken turns leading the team in scoring. They lead the team in facilitating. When you look at the assist numbers, you're obviously keeping an eye on turnovers, how those guys do there. Late in games, what's the decision making?
Right.
If you look at this finish against Winthrop early in the week, when it came down the stretch, Arkansas made every correct play defensively on the last 4 defensive possessions and offensively on the last 3 offensive possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want these two guys that are so talented and gifted, because you're going to maybe need the ball in their hands when you're in this situation again,
Right.
to continue to grow and learn. And while we were off the air, you made a great point about their usage in a tight game. And I want you to bring that up. I want to credit you for that.
Okay.
And we could talk more about that, about why they need to be on the court in crunch time.
Right. So against Michigan State, they were kind of criticized towards the end of the game for some of the choices that they made on the court. But as freshmen, you're going to make those mistakes. It's early in the season. What was that? Their second or third game of the season. So
Yeah.
you're going to make those choices, right? And then you play. Now you have another chance to kind of redeem yourself, show some of those improvements against a team against Duke, like Duke. But you need the freshmen in there at the end of the game because they need to make those mistakes now when, yes, these games matter, but they don't count as much as they would if you're in the SEC tournament or you're in the March Madness.
No, it's absolutely right. In fact, if you look down the stretch in the game against Winthrop, DJ Wagner, Arkansas's veteran guard, who was such a big part last year of Arkansas turning its season around, it was kind of an off night for him.
Mm-hmm.
And those freshmen had to play a big part in that comeback, and Arkansas staying within contact to be able to even have that finish to win that game. But these guys, again, their usage is such a majority of what Arkansas does offensively, that there's no way you're going to get through a season by shelving them in these big games when it's crunch time. You've got to let them play through it. Yes, there were some mistakes made and some questionable decisions against Michigan State, but you mentioned it. Game 2 of the season, you're on the road in that environment.
Right.
They're going to have to play through some of that, and win or lose when they get – because I think this will be a close game against Duke. I do. And those two are probably going to be on the court in the closing stretch, barring some unforeseen reason. And so it's the next opportunity for them to make plays, step up, and do something even maybe a little bit differently, having learned from some of those trial by fire situations down the stretch against Michigan State. But I love it that you wanted to talk about the two freshmen because this is a unique season at Arkansas. Arkansas's had great freshmen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure they've had a duo that's had as much impact on production and the quality of the team, and knowing from day one that whatever your team's going to be, it's going to be in large part, maybe even more so than we projected for both of them coming in than what we've seen previously in a proud program that's, again, had some outstanding freshmen over the years.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that long ago, a few years ago, 3 years ago, where you had 3 one-and-dones, 5-star guys that came in. They were all important. One of them was in and out with injuries. Another one, it took a while to kind of acclimate and forge his way to the starting lineup. And Malik Thomas has played mostly off the bench, but production-wise, I don't think we've seen anything like this from 2 true freshmen at Arkansas. And so if you're making a statement like that, when it counts, those guys, you're going to be counting on them.
Right. Well, another guy that just when he comes in the game, the whole atmosphere of Arkansas, the arena at Bud Walton, everyone just gets so much more excited. Billy Richmond III. I mean, this guy is awesome. He's scrappy. He's one of those guys that we were kind of talking about before, that persona of, okay, the shots aren't falling, but he does everything else on the floor. He's diving for loose balls. He's jumping out of bounds to make sure to turn the ball around to keep it in play. He's looking out for his teammates, setting everybody up so well. I mean, I don't know if there's not enough good things that you could say about him.
No, and that's another point you brought up in the break before we came back on. Let's talk about Billy Richmond III. We didn't talk about that Samford game. Arkansas won by 4 prior to these last 2 this week, and he had a huge second half getting on the offensive glass. He made plays against Winthrop that helped Arkansas, and it's those hustle energy plays, keeping the ball alive. Not just yielding and saying, okay, we're going to give up this rebound to the opposition. I'm going to battle for it. So even if he doesn't even record a stat off the play, a deflection and it's a dead ball out of bounds team rebound or one of those things, diving on the floor for loose balls, running the floor and getting out in transition and dunking to finish off either a live ball turnover. Arkansas is able to get out and run off a long rebound. Whatever it is that is needed to juice the performance of the other 4 around him, he's that kind of guy. And it's always those plug and play energy guys. They're kind of, some people call them glue guys, connectors, and there's different ways to do it, but he is that guy. And that's why I always say, don't ever devalue him coming off the bench.
Yeah.
This guy has starter value, and it's like another starter. He just comes off the bench, and he started some games, and he'll start some more, but you get the point. He's been mostly a reserve, but he's invaluable.
Well, Cal has credited a couple of their wins so far this season to him, saying they would not have gotten it done without all of the work that he puts in. And you know what? He said that the state of Arkansas, is starting this new nickname for him called Billy Goat. And I love it. I think it's well-deserved. I think players like these often get overlooked when you're not the leading scorer, you're not leading with rebounds, any of that stuff on the stat sheet, you get overlooked a lot. So I'm glad that Billy is getting the recognition that he deserves, and they're going to need him to do that again against Duke on Thursday.
Yeah, this is the kind of game that guys like he and Carter Knox can really have an impact. I thought against Michigan State, Carter had, even though he didn't get his offense going and it was just a struggle bus for him. Remember, he didn't play in the season over, Carter, with an injury. Only took 1 shot attempt. Billy Richmond did some really good things in the first half. Probably played as hard as anybody and with as much physicality as Arkansas brought in that game, Billy Richmond III. But in tandem with Carter Knox, this could be a statement game for those. If Arkansas is going to win, it won't be just about those 2 freshmen. Arkansas needs Trevor and Brazile to be at the level he's playing at here and not have a slip back. But I really think guys like Billy Richmond and Carter Knox could be the X factors here. If both of those guys in tandem have a strong outing, I think that's a pathway for Arkansas to win this game. Again, Nick Pringle and Malik Ewan, a combo or one of those guys in concert with the Trevor Brazile. The Arkansas needs not just 1 or 2 guys; it's collective. But I really look at the potential for Billy Richmond and Carter Knox to have statement games. There's a potential for that, and that's why it's important to bring up Billy, because sometimes, like you said, because he typically plays off the bench, it gets overlooked sometimes. But I think people are used to it now as well. That energy level goes up, and you want it to be infectious for guys before he comes onto the court. To say, look, I'm going to do the little things like that guy does before he shows up and he checks in. I need to be doing my job. And I think Calipari kind of circles back to that. He brings up Carter Knox, saying, he sees Billy come in and elevate things, and now Carter's starting to. You want Arkansas players to key into that before Billy ever steps on the court.
Right.
But the fact that maybe some nights there's more of that, others not. With him, it's always going to be broad.
Yep. Well, it'll be a good one to go down in Chicago against Duke on Thanksgiving Day. Kevin, you're heading up to Chicago. It's going to be a little bit chillier than it is here in Arkansas.
It might snow. Yeah, the plan is I've been to Chicago multiple times in the past. I haven't been there in a few years. I used to vacation there some with family, or part of our vacation. And so it'd be nice to get back. I love that area.
Well, have so much fun on that trip. And that'll do it for your Hog Hoops Report. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Ailey Weiss. Stick with us for more Pig Trail after the break.